Next, tragedy strikes, accidents happen. Be there when the calls come in. It's back-to-back episodes of Rescue 911. Next on Discovery Health Channel.
This is 911. Do you have an emergency?
Today on Rescue 911, a dangerous ride.
There was blood everywhere.
Rescue units fight the clock as a community pulls together to save a fallen horseman on Rescue 911.
We begin on January 7th, 1990, in Mount Pleasant, Texas, as three close friends were spending the day together on the Chapman family farm.
Greg Weaver and his friends had been riding since childhood.
It was early in the spring, and it was just one of the prettiest days we'd had so far, so we decided to get outside and go riding.
Michael Chapman led the way through a pasture behind his father's house. Joe Newman was close behind.
We rode for about an hour or two. And Michael looked over at me and he asked me if I had ever ridden John's horse. I said no. So we switched horses and I turned her around and just kicked her and started running through the pasture.
I saw him gonna hit the tree before he ever did, and I opened my mouth to scream, and it was too late. And it looked as if Michael's horse didn't see the tree until it was too late. At that time, it swerved to the right and threw Michael to the left and into the tree. There was so much blood coming out of his nose and mouth, I couldn't tell if he was breathing or not. I knew a little bit about first aid, and I knew that if all that blood went down in his lungs, he wouldn't have a chance, so that's why I rolled him back over and tried to pick him up where he would start coughing that blood up. And when I got him turned over and had him picked up, he started coughing. Then I knew, that he was still alive.
And the next thing I know, I see my horse and Michael's horse just run past me without any riders on them.
What happened? He hit the tree, man. Help me hold him up.
There was blood everywhere. And I looked up at the tree, and that's the tree is what I remember most about the whole situation. It looked like a bear had reached up there and just took a hunk out of it from where his head hit.
When we continue.
When I got out there, I just felt everything just left me. It looked like there was no way possible that he could make it.
Surviving your teenage years can be difficult at best, but when you're 17 and almost 400 pounds, your problems really are too big to handle. Is a risky operation John's only hope? Find out on Big John, tomorrow at 8 on Discovery Health Channel.
The house where Michael's stepmother and Father Dwayne lived was only a quarter of a mile from where the accident had happened.
Joe Newman hollered for us to call the ambulance. Michael had fell off his horse. Well, I didn't really think a whole lot about that at that time. I've had him fall off horses before, and Glenda said, well, he might have broke his leg. And I said, well, go ahead and call the ambulance. I'm going out there and see.
At 5:10 p.m., a call came into the Memorial Hospital emergency room. Paramedic Paul Newby and his partner were out in the field when the call came in.
Dispatch advised respond code 3 to Oak Acres. I believe she said a kid fell off of a porch. Porch or a horse?
I misunderstood the call. I thought our dispatcher to say that a young person had fallen off a porch. So we were expecting 6, 7-year-old child, maybe with a broken arm, nothing real serious.
When I got out there, I just felt everything just left me. I didn't know what to do, and I just thought, well, this is the end. And I was just hoping and praying that the paramedics would get there because there was none of us out there really knew what to do. We was all real scared.
When they got to the gate, I just jumped on and told them to come around to the back of the house, and I'd get off and show them where to go.
When we pulled up, he didn't have any blood pressure at all that would register, and he was unresponsive to painful or verbal stimuli. He wouldn't answer to anything.
On three. 1, 2, 3.
Blood was pooling in the back of his throat, and he could possibly aspirate and essentially drown in his own blood. Head injuries, especially closed head injuries, are real bad. And when you're bleeding out the nose and the ears and the mouth, like Michael was bleeding, that's not good. They usually don't make it.
It looked like there was no way possible that he could make it. He was grasping for breath like that, you know, he wasn't going to get the next one. And it was just a very bad experience.
Michael's severe head injury needed specialized treatment. He was airlifted to East Texas Medical Center, where a trauma team was waiting, led by Dr. William Moore.
When I first saw Michael, he had no response to my verbal stimulation. In other words, when I talked to him, he didn't respond. And when I pinched him, he moved a little bit more with the left than on the right. His pupils were very sluggishly reactive. In other words, he was showing signs that his brain just wasn't working very well at all.
As the medical team examined Michael, friends and family gathered outside the emergency room, including his mother, Glenda Chapman.
The nurse that was with him looked down the hall, and she said, "I see he's got a lot of family and a lot of friends." The hall was just full by then of people, you know, that had followed us down there. And she said, "Would you give them a message?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Pray." She gave me that one word. And they had told some of the family that they did not expect him to make it through the night.
Okay. You ready?
On call that night was neurosurgeon Steve Gady.
This CAT scan showed that he had bruising in his brain. And sometimes after a brain is bruised, there will be such severe swelling that it'll cause even more bruising. And then that bruising causes more swelling. Therefore, even though we've got these wonderful CAT scans that show us incredible pictures of the inside of the head, it's very, very hard to predict what will work and what won't work, what his chances for recovery are and what his chances for recovery aren't.
Michael was moved to ICU. Even his doctors didn't know if he'd ever come out of the coma.
I suppose when I began to pray, the thing that went through my mind the most was that if Michael, you know, if his brain wasn't going to be functional, that I asked the Lord to take him on, because he couldn't live with that, and I knew he wouldn't want that.
But miraculously, Michael gradually began to awaken from the coma. He had lost motor coordination and suffered major impairment of speech and sight and memory loss. Five months after the accident, Michael is still undergoing an intensive rehabilitation program under the guidance of Dr. Mark Race.
Teaching someone how to dress themselves again, or how to comb their hair, or how to wash their hands, or do the activities of daily living. We attributed his recovery to all of these types of therapies and his own will to get better.
Now, let's say you walk on...
We never gave up. When the doctor would say, I'm not sure about Michael's vision, or I'm not, you know, really sure about his walking and this, that, and the other, you know, well, we'd say, well, he's going to walk. He's going to walk, and he's going to see.
Father, we thank you for the good things you give us through life. We thank you.
The reason that Michael is where he's at today and how he's recovered so fast is that he just never quit. The only thing Michael can see himself is as how Michael was before it happened. And until he gets to that point, I don't think he's going to accept anything else.
Well, I realize now that things happen that aren't planned, I get very impatient. I don't like not being able to do things for myself. I don't like not being able to ride my horse. But I consider myself very lucky to be here.
I think Greg Weaver and all the paramedics that was out here, they've really done a great job. And Greg and the paramedics just saved the boy's life. That's all you can say.
Even before he was released from the hospital, Michael and his fiancée, Tammy, were married.
It was hard not knowing what was going to happen, but it didn't matter. I was going to stand by him no matter what he turned out like.
Michael today, he's improved so much in the length of time since his accident. He loves life, and he wanted to get back on that horse one of these days. And he's real optimistic that this is going to happen.
On August 24, 1990, a daughter, Jessica Brooke, was born to Michael and Tammy Chapman.
Next, step inside the command center where the calls for help are answered and meet the real-life heroes who save lives. Stay tuned for another episode of Rescue 911, next on Discovery Health Channel. Real life, medicine, miracles.
Mr. Shapiro, step out of the car, please.